Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here with two of the most important queens from Queens. Jimmy Van Bramer. There are many queens from Queens. They're my two closest, and I'm so proud of them. And you'll hear from Jimmy in a moment. But you all should know that down at City Hall, Jimmy chairing the Cultural Affairs Committee, which oversees all of our cultural institutions in New York City and the library system, and Danny, who was our education chair and is now our finance chair, they both play very prominent roles. And to walk down that hallway and see the photos of Danny at protest after protest, and see Jimmy when he was a college student at St. John's, you know, he dressed a little different back then than he does today, is very moving. And I'm really grateful for Richard and his team. I want to thank the provost for having me today. And I want to thank all the students who participated in this exhibit and really made it come to life in a really beautiful, meaningful way. I'm not going to speak for that long, but Danny said it. He talked about the real detriment of invisibility. And for me, when I came out at 16 years old in a small town about 25 miles north of Boston, I did not know a single gay person. I came out not to run for office one day, but I came out because I was so despondent and clinically depressed and suicidal that I felt like if I did not talk about it, if I did not talk about how I was feeling, if I did not verbalize the identity struggle that I was going through, that I wasn't going to survive, that I wouldn't be able to live. And that moment of grace, that moment of truth, that moment of telling my story and not knowing what the results were going to be, really opened up some amazing opportunities. And I had a loving family, and I had a town that embraced me. And as soon as I came out at 16 years old, I started to literally go to the library and go online. It was still a dial-up modem, and try to understand the history, the people that came before me, the folks who had actually created the foundation for me to come out in 1999, 6 months after Matthew Shepard had been murdered in Wyoming, and have the experience that I had. There was a gay straight alliance in my school. There were no openly gay people in the Gay Straight Alliance. It was all straight girls. But there was still a Gay Straight Alliance in the school that I came out in. And I wanted to understand, as a 17-year-old, what actually laid that foundation. And when I started to read the Life and Times of Harvey Milk and watch the documentary about the mayor of Castro Street, and to understand the HIV and AIDS epidemic in the 1980s and 1990s, and learn about the struggles that our community faced, it was those things that visibility is what got me politically interested. That's what got me to decide to get involved in LGBT activism and HIV and AIDS activism, and eventually the democratic process and electoral politics. And when I came to New York at 19 years old, I came here a month before the Gay Pride Parade in 2001. And I marched in that parade, and I remember being so moved by being with that many other LGBT people. I moved here with 2 bags, knowing 2 people, and I immediately got plugged in to the LGBT community here. And it's how I met people like Jimmy Van Bramer and Danny Drum before I was elected to office, before they were elected to office, when they were just community leaders in their neighborhoods, before they ran and made history in 2009 as the 2 first openly gay elected officials in the borough of Queens. And so that is why it is so important to tell our stories. Because sometimes we think our stories, who knows? You know, we get sick of telling our stories. But our stories, it's really kind of the most human thing about us. It's the one thing really human beings share, that our stories are those powerful things that we have. And our stories can affect and inspire and change the world. And for me, being a young gay teenager who wanted to learn my history is what really set my path to come to New York City, to get involved in the LGBT community, to run for office in 2013, and to be now an openly gay elected official, an openly gay speaker of the New York City Council, the only openly HIV positive elected official in the state of New York. And it comes from the stories that I read, the stories that I was inspired by, the living history that was preserved to teach people from my generation about the folks that came before us. So just one more quick aside, which I think is an important connection to make. So about 32 years ago, in 1986, there was a raging debate in the New York City Council about a gay rights bill, which would protect LGBT, not T New Yorkers at the time, on the basis of sexual orientation. And it was a struggle that had gone on for years and years and years, since the 1970s. And at that time, opponents of the bill, and there were many, were screaming from the balconies and the rafters in our great chamber at the City Council, railing against the bill. And the major argument that they used against the bill was they said, if you pass this bill, you will create societal acceptance of homosexuality. I am so glad they were right. They were questions, but their argument was correct. That moment created greater acceptance of the gay community in New York City. And Jimmy and Danny were doing that work back in 1986. I was only 4 years old. But I stand on the shoulders of the folks whose photos hang on that wall. I stand on the shoulders of the tens of thousands of gay men who lost their lives to AIDS in the 1980s and 90s. When I seroconverted in 2004, I lost my job and my health insurance 1 week later. I didn't know what I was going to do. There's a photo over there of an organization called Apacha. I went to Apacha 2 days after finding out I was HIV positive. And they hooked me up with a caseworker, and they got me access to a doctor and a medication. And the reason why there were organizations like Apacha, and the reason why I got access to a doctor and medication, was because of the countless men and women who put their lives and bodies on the line in the 1980s and 90s to ask and fight for life-saving medication. And so we stand on their shoulders. We stand on the shoulders of all three of us, of Tom Duane, who was my predecessor in the seat that I hold, who was a state senator, of Christine Quinn, who was the first openly gay speaker of the City Council, and of countless other men and women and straight allies that stood up for us in our most desperate, dark, and terrible times. And it is our job as elected officials, and not even as elected officials, as members of the community, to continue to tell our story, to continue to inspire young people to know their history, to continue to amplify the voices of the folks that really made all this possible. So this exhibition is beautiful. I got emotional actually seeing the photos and reading the captions, and to see the partnership between LaGuardia and the wonderful students that go here, and the New York City Council, who has played a role in funding cultural work through Jimmy's leadership, is really, really beautiful. It's the kind of meeting of all of these worlds. And so I wanted to be here today to participate in this important moment, not just for the borough of Queens, not just for the LGBT community, but for the history of our city. Because the city of New York is a city of immigrants, and it's a city of women's liberation, and it's a city of anti-slavery actions, and it's a city of the birthplace of the modern gay rights movement in America. And so this exhibit is not just LGBT history. It is New York City history. It is American history. And it's a history that we all have to remember and to continue to build on. So I'm so grateful to be here today, and I am proud to introduce the councilman who represents this district, my friend, our colleague, who is dressing better today than he did back in 1992.